Welcome to the toolkit. We're going to be going over creating healthy culture today, and we've got Aaron with us, Aaron Lee from Richmond. He is a co-laborer along with a couple others on the call, Brett and Brian. Brian and Aaron are in the Richmond area, along with Eddie and I here in Norfolk, Virginia Beach. So yeah, excited to have you guys on. Aaron's bringing our tool today. Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in a leadership role? And even before that, what does leadership look like for you? Just in a minute or so. And then I've got one more question before we cut you loose on teaching us the tool.
All right. Leadership to me has looked a lot of different ways. I joked with a coworker at one point about 10 years ago. We said, hey, we could write a book on leadership based on the bad examples that we've seen. And so since then, I've been on a quest, I guess, coming out of nonprofits, churches, community organizations, led in a variety of different ways. Most recently led the disaster relief arm of the organization I worked in, where we sent volunteers to the front lines after tornadoes, floods, fires, earthquakes, and hurricanes. I think we hit all of those in my 5 years there. And I loved, that was when things started to shift for me in really multiplying, inviting others onto this leadership journey, investing in them and giving them the tools they needed to be successful, not just the physical tools. And we had some pretty great tools in that organization, but also the leadership tools, how they could motivate, equip, and bring people along with them. And I look back now, and that's probably what I'm most proud of, is that many of those people we invited into leadership and the people they invited into leadership are still leading in that organization. So I've been coaching, consulting, doing this work that we do with organizations of all sizes, from Fortune 100s all the way down to small businesses here in our community. I've been doing this 8-9 years now. And Brian and I recently merged and launched Leaders Rising Network. So we're on the team. We have some folks here in Virginia and some up in Wisconsin, trying to take all of this to the next level.
Yeah, that's awesome. We need it. I'm sure every one of us has encountered the experience of learning what not to do instead of learning what to do. And I've been there, man. And I've definitely told myself, hey, next season or next place, next leader I put myself under, I want to learn what to do. I've learned a lot of what not to do. So yeah, and very grateful for these tools. And
absolutely
that we utilize. So I'm going to pause for the jet noise that we affectionately call here next to the naval base the sound of freedom. So Aaron, last question real quick. What's one old person thing that you find yourself doing randomly? Let's have a bit of third gear fun for a second. What's an old person thing that you're already diving into and just accepting?
All right. I really feel this morning, so I'm going to go this direction. I got a new pair of shoes, and so I'm really dialed in and focused on how to get the right, like, insole insert, Dr. Scholl's or Amazon. I'm all over the map.
There you go.
My feet are killing me. And no lie, I woke up last week one morning, had this foot pain every day. I'm like, I just got to Google this. What is this heel pain? And it's like, well, between the ages of 40 and 60, this happens. And it spelled out exactly what this foot issue was.
Man.
And my podiatrist, my eye doctor, one other doctor, all said to me in my 30s, I say in my 30s like I'm not still in my 30s. I am for 3 more months. They all said, hey, when you hit 30, it's like downhill from there. And I'm like, whoa. This was supposed to be like 50, 60, 70 years old. 30, So
yeah.
take care of your bodies. Brian's got a different story on taking care of your body, so you can hear that another day. But
all right.
That's it. Foot care.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. Thank you for sharing that and being amazingly vulnerable. The age thing is catching up. So hope you get that figured out. Let me know what you find. I did a little bit of research a year ago on like the flat soled shoes, like the Zero. I don't know what they're called.
Something like Zero, isn't it?
Yeah, something Zero. And yeah, you know better than I probably, as opposed to what we typically wear, which is faux heel pretty much. So man, hope you get that figured out. We'll be trying to.
I got another Amazon order coming this afternoon. I'm excited about.
Good for you, man. Talk us through creating healthy culture. Why is language so important? And you've been in some pretty unsettling cultures before in business. What does it look like to create healthy culture or turn that around?
So I alluded to the fact that I was sitting across the dining room table at Brian's house just a little bit ago. We were having this conversation with his wife, who works in human resources, and talking through this very tool. And we talked about the issue of silos, and you think about that, but each department, each section of an organization, even each manager within part of an organization can develop their own subculture within an organization. And most of the time when we do that, we're starting from a place of skills. The skills focus, the expertise. Yeah, every color, every team takes on its own flavor of the culture, like this visual. So when you get back to the foundation, you ask, how do we break down those silos? How do we make sure we're creating a healthy culture all across the organization? And as we were talking about with Anne, Brian's wife, this morning, it's not about how we're doing or what we're doing per se, but it's the people side. It's the human side. How do we get into this kind of intelligence of the personality and the relationships and how we work together and collaborate? And I've encouraged a few leaders I've been around just in the last few weeks, like, hey, you've got to reinforce the language. One guy in particular I was working with, every conversation we had, we'd be talking with a team or a leader. He'd be in front of somebody else and he'd say, well, it's like this. And he'd introduce a whole new vocabulary of new words that just made it more complex, more confusing, more ambiguous. And we're just going so fast these days. There's so much flying at us, so many messages, so many words, so much information. We've got to simplify that. We've got to break it down so that when we talk and we use a certain word or phrase, everybody around us knows exactly what we mean. They get a picture in their mind, an experience maybe in their heart. They get that warm, fuzzy feeling like, oh yes, I know exactly what they're saying. And they're really dialed in. One of our mutual friends was here in town. It was actually the week I met Eddie and John earlier this year. And one of the things I noticed being in the room with Jeremy was that Jeremy's words and language, just everyday talk, brought all of this to life. He was using the same vocabulary, the same words in everyday talk, in everyday language all the time. He wasn't confusing people with a lot of different words, a lot of different analogies. It was straight to the point. And if I go back to this disaster relief organization, one of my favorite experiences was when I would start to drip this vocabulary, new vocabulary. We're talking about new things, a new title, a new role. When I heard somebody else say that same word, say that same phrase, repeat that. I was like, yes, this is worth celebrating, because it's not just me saying this now, somebody else is using these words, these phrases. And I think from my perspective, we were talking about this with Brett a little bit ago. Brett's got one mindset. I am a pioneer. I want to move fast. I want to go far, and I want to do it quick. And so for me, part of my motivation in seeing this tool come to life is to be able to do things more efficiently. So what we're talking about is, we don't just have words and phrases we're using, but we have words or phrases that we're using that we've expressed in some kind of visual, in something that we get a snapshot in our minds of what this looks like, so that we file it away. It's not just a linguistic language thing. It's a neuro-linguistic, that it sticks in our minds so we can see that picture when we're talking about the words. And so then we get from the vocabulary down to a visual, and all of that is creating a language. We're not just carrying around a big dictionary. Brian had out the physical copy of the toolkit. I've got one here somewhere, but I tend to use the digital version like John has up here. It's not just something to carry around though. It's words that we have a visual for. It's actually part of our common language. We're using this in our everyday conversation so that we know, when I say this word, when I say call somebody up, John knows what it means. Brian knows what it means. Brett knows what it means. Everybody on our team now knows what that phrase means and doesn't have their own definition. We all have the same definition. So then what that means is that that's facilitating productive communication, efficient communication. We are able now, my motivation to win, to get there to the goal and the deadline, is all of this vocabulary now is flowing down to, we can communicate far more effectively. And if I say one phrase, it's worth a 10-page thesis, because everybody has the backstory. Everybody knows what it means. And when you put all this together, this is what creates and builds healthy cultures. That we're talking the same language, we're using the same words, we all have a visual, a common way to bring it to life. And so then under pressure, culture is trumping strategy. We can have the best strategy, but under pressure, culture is going to trump that. One of the organizations that I'm working with here in town had a cyber attack a couple weeks ago. Their big software provider, external software provider on a national level, had a cyber attack that crippled their system. Well, they had a great strategy around using that tool. But without that tool, the culture starts to drive them. Now, we hadn't started working with them yet. We started working with them once they got their house back in order. We had to reschedule our meeting once to accommodate for that. But that's the kind of environment where when you get in the heat of the moment, something external happens, it flies at you. You want to have the tools in your toolbox so that you are ready to make this happen. You're ready to build the best culture so that you can get through this, so you can come out stronger and be ready to take on the world.
Yeah, that's huge. Culture eats strategy for lunch every day, but strategy sustains culture as well. Healthy strategy can help. So we're not dismissing strategy. We actually want to help get to better strategy, more productive strategy. But that can only happen if the culture is right. So one thing that I'm seeing through this is, and I'm going to share my screen to show another visual tool, is the flywheel tool that we have. Yep. And that begins with, lo and behold, communication, number one. If we don't have communication down, a common, effective, productive language, then our relationships aren't going to be as strong. Our alignment is going to be way off. I don't care if you have the 90s All-American Olympic basketball team, the dream team. If those guys don't come onto that team with all their skills and abilities ready to be on a team and not just play for themselves, then you're not going to have the alignment. They're not going to execute. You can get by with their strategy for a little bit, but it's not going to happen. The performance is going to be slow. So
down there at the bottom, John, alignment and execution. That's where strategy falls. That's where our skills and expertise fall. But that's not going to sustain us. We've got to build that foundation of communication and relationships where we have trust. That's what's going to help this become a flywheel and let the momentum keep flying.
Yeah, that's huge. So how do you expect to see the culture shift in this new client that you're serving? What's your logical next step or first step with them to try and assess their vocabulary, their common language, to see how they're productive? What are you doing?
Yeah, we're starting with communication, giving them a common foundation so they all understand it. And already, even the feedback they gave us from our first session together was, hey, now I understand. I understand why I need that person. I understand why they're different and why I need to value them. And that's going to help make all of us better.
Yeah, no doubt. When I can understand the differences of someone else, my unique superpowers or weapons, and their superpowers and weapons, then I have a lot more grace when we don't have that alignment. And that's the culture that we're trying to build on teams. So we're at our 20 minutes. Eddie, you want to wrap us up? And we can hang on for another second. If somebody's got questions, we'd love to include you guys. If something came up and you've just got something on your heart that you got to share, or that you want to ask, bring it.
Absolutely.
But anything right now?
Yeah, Aaron, how can we reach you? Maybe throw an email in the chat. If they have any more questions about this tool or any other tools, we'd love to just be able to have people connect with you. Also find Aaron Lee on LinkedIn through mine or John's friends if you guys are connected in through us. But guys, it's a as we continue to present different tools each month, each guide that comes on, they bring their own flavor, they have their own expertise. And so Aaron, for me, is somebody I look up to in just his strategy, the way he thinks, that moving fast mentality. And so Aaron, just thank you for being with us today and giving us 20 minutes of your time.